So heat pumps vary in size. It depends on the heat loss that your house has got. So the bigger your heat loss, the bigger the heat pump that you'll need. But generally speaking, they'll be about 1.5 meters wide and 1 meter tall. Any of the thermal elements in your home will affect the size of the heat pump you need. If you think about the heat loss envelope of your home, so if you were to put a big jacket or a coat around your house, that's what's keeping your house cozy and warm. So all the elements that make that cover around your home are your thermal elements, and they'll all affect the size of the heat pump you need. So how well insulated your floor is, how well insulated your walls are, how well insulated your loft or your roof is, they'll all affect the size of the heat pump needed. Your windows and doors, how effective they are, will affect the size of the heat pump. And also how drafty your house is. So if you've got a lot of unwanted ventilation, that will all affect the heat loss of your home as well, which will have an impact on the size of the heat pump that you need. The actual size of your home will have an impact on the heat pump as well. If your house is bigger, generally speaking, it will need a larger heat pump than if your house is smaller. And also the number of people living in your home. So if you've got 2 people living in your home who are washing and showering, they'll have a smaller hot water requirement than if there are 5 or 6 people living in your home. So the more people that are living in your home will generate more need for hot water, which means your heat pump will have to work a bit harder. Until we've worked out the specific heat requirements for each room in your home, we can't tell you if you need to change out your radiators or not. It absolutely depends on the size of the room and the size of the radiators. Generally speaking, heat pumps are run at about 45 degrees, so they're at a lower temperature than a gas boiler, which is typically run at about 60 to 65 degrees. So to generate the same amount of heat energy in the room, you need a larger surface area of radiator. Often we find houses that the radiators are fine. Often older houses will have already had a hot water cylinder with their previous boiler. These are usually taken out then to make space for a combi boiler. So you might find that your home already has the perfect place for a hot water cylinder where there was originally one there when the house was built. If you don't have a space like this in your home, then ideally you want to keep them in the heated space in your home. If you can't find space in a heated area, they can always go in a place like a loft, but it's better to have it inside your home where possible. Ideally, we want the shortest amount of pipe runs running through your house, because where you've got pipes going particularly from the outside to the inside, you're losing heat in those pipes. So ideally you want your heat pump external section to be as close as possible to where the hot water cylinder is going. But in a retrofit situation, this isn't always possible, and we have to just make the best choices we can with the resources that we've got. So loads of terraced houses have heat pumps. You need to be mindful about the noise requirements, especially if they've got, for example, a bedroom window looking out onto where your heat pump is. There are things you can do to mitigate that noise though, for example, building high garden fences or barriers that will help reduce the noise from the heat pumps. But other than that, there are no issues with having heat pumps in terraced houses, so long as you've got the space in the garden to put one. So heat pumps typically run at about 40 to 55 decibels. To give you an idea of how noisy that is, an electric toothbrush is between 50 and 65 decibels. Your fridge will run at about 50 decibels. So if you can imagine those things running in the background like a fridge always does, and that doesn't bother you, then it's unlikely that a heat pump will either. So heat pumps are designed to work consistently and keep a consistent temperature in your home. When you run a gas boiler, often people will have spikes in heat in their home. So Nice and hot in the morning, cool it off in the day, nice and hot in the evening, cold at night. Whereas heat pumps are designed to keep a consistent, comfortable temperature throughout the day and night in your home. You can do things like making sure that your windows and doors are closed in the winter to reduce heat loss. You can improve your draft proofing to make sure that you're not losing heat through unwanted ventilation. The other things you can do to reduce your bills are to make sure that you're on an energy tariff that's either specifically designed for heat pumps or has cheaper rates throughout the day and night so that you can avail of a cheaper rate of electricity. And also installing things like battery storage and PV on your roof can reduce the energy bills for running a heat pump. Think of your heat pump like a slow cooker and your gas boiler like an oven. If you put a casserole in an oven for an hour and a half, you'll have a casserole at the end of it, but it will use quite a large amount of energy to do that. With your slow cooker, you can put your casserole in the morning, it uses less amount of energy for a longer time, and you still get a casserole at the end of it. You can't turn it on and off rapidly the same way as you can an oven as you can with an oven. So you get the same amount of heat, but it's done more efficiently over a long period of time. So when we come out to do a heat pump survey, we do a lot of measuring. So we measure all your windows, all your doors, we measure each room individually to check what the heat loss would be from each surface in your home. We'll pop in the loft to check your level of insulation. If you've got a cellar or a basement, we'll go down and look in there. But it's not an invasive survey. We're not drilling any holes, we're not lifting any floorboards, we're not looking inside your walls. We can offer those services such as boroscoping, where we drill small holes about the size of a pencil in your wall to poke a tiny camera in to look inside walls if you're unsure if you've got things like cavity wall insulation. That would be an additional service to the heat pump survey though. So heat pumps do blow out cold air, but the reality of it is that when your heat pump is blowing out the most cold air is when your heat pump is working hardest, and that's in winter when you're indoors. So it's unlikely that your heat pump is going to be blowing out large amounts of cold air when you're sat outside on your patio in the summertime. If it is, and this is an issue, you can just make sure that you time your heat pump so that it's working hardest when you're not sitting on your patio, so early in the morning or in the evening or late at night.